recommended bitrate. You'll be alright. Alright. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm going to smoke a cigarette and start. Give people a few minutes to get in here. If they're not in here, they're not in here. And go watch some Fazbear Entertainment. Heck yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Uh oh. Am I making the sounds? Am I doing the noises? Did I set this right? Hold on. Alright. Now is it working? Let's go ahead and get back to chat. Testing. Here's I'll find out. Welcome. Welcome on in. We're gonna get started here in a couple minutes.
First video we're reacting to is one that I told Fredbear Entertainment I would a while back. I'm sorry it's taken so long. Um, things just always happen. It's going to be how Secret of the Mimic solved the Fredbear's Family Diner. He called it Fred Barn, I do believe. Hello, Mio. How are you doing? Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate you being here today. Oh, well, that might end up being more fun than this. Probably going to be a whole lot more people there. Um, I'm very small time. Just trying to hit some small goals, try to help out where I can. Had some free time this week. I really do appreciate that. I appreciate you swinging by through. You know, it's really nice. Um, right now, things were kind of on like the drop of a dime today 'cause I had to wait for family. So I'm trying to give people a few minutes to get in. And if they can't get here, I'll just show up. I'll just start. If they can't show up, I'll just start. Which it's okay. Totally my fault. Couldn't give like an actual start time for the day. Life be like that. All right. I do believe it is time to start. We're gonna start again with the Fazbear Entertainment video. If it's too loud or too low, let me know. You thank you, Kay, and I really appreciate that. Oh, yeah, this- So I gotta figure out why I can't do this. I can't really react to it if it's not coming out. You know what I mean? There we go. Is it loud enough for you guys out there?
It's probably the story is well established throughout the years. It's the starting where Charlie dies in the novels and debatably in the games, and where the crime child was shoved into the mountain, Purple Bear, cursing the land, brand of Fredbear's ever since. Well, I know that by now I'm known for some pretty controversial takes, so get ready for another.
You know, I know the internet reacts in such a way, and this is somewhere I'm gonna start leading my channel to because I don't really feel like there's much I have more in the theory aspect other than the things I've already brought up. They're already the things I know. They're already the things I believe in. But so many people think their things are controversial or that they cause a riot just because of unsavory people. And that's something I'm really against because Asbury and T, for example, even being a new guy, has a lot of really good points. And even if I don't agree with him on everything and he agrees with me on very little or just one or two things, I still can see his good points. And I don't really see them as controversial. I really think that's something that needs to be changing soon.
I'm here to
It's
tell
good to
you
hear that
that
you can hear me here.
everything we thought we knew about Fredbear's
Um,
Family Diner.
we do have a handful of people in here, so let me just go ahead and say the link that is pinned in chat, that is the direct link to Feeding America. Um, I don't have any kind of like tracking way. I'm not set up on Tiltify or anything like that. You can donate on your own. You don't have to prove that you donated, but if you want proven donations, there will be rewards. I have 8 Steam keys for random games that I found just on sale last night. I'll be giving away 4 each day. If you do make a donation of any amount, whether it's $1, 50 cents, whatever it may be, you can send it to me on Discord. You can send it to me in email, theorychum with a 3 at gmail.com. You can you can just show me proof of it anywhere. You'll be entered into a raffle to win one of the games, and then the winners will be announced. The keys will be given out, and things will be going well from there. There will be also be smaller goals, like money reachment goals. My big goal right now, like I said, I'm a small guy, so I want to try to raise $50 between today and tomorrow. That'll be 500 meals that, according to Feeding America, and that's something small, but that can help out even just a small town needing help. If we do start reaching those monetary goals, I will put myself on the chopping block, and I will go into help wanted on VR. I am a really big scaredy cat. I'm a really big chicken, and I do not do well in help wanted on VR. So you guys will get to enjoy me cry if we start reaching the $50 goal.
Strong. And how that affects the most infamous minigame of all time, Midnight Motorist. I'll get into what I mean in a bit, but first, I want to lay some groundwork that we learned from the newest game, Secret of the Mimic. Now, as far as I know, in the novel, Fredbear's was only open a few years, from 1979 to 1983. However, we can know for certain that this cannot be the case in the game's timeline, as there are Fredbear's Family Diner pizza boxes throughout Secret of the Mimic, and several mail logs and audio logs discussing the diner and the Springlock suits Edwin was developing for it, alongside the Proto Fredbear and Proto Spring Bonnie seen in research and development. And with the information that Secret of the Mimic takes place in 1979, presumably at least a year since Edwin has gone missing, that means that the diner had to be open prior to 1979. This is also supported by the fact that Proto Fredbear and Spring Bonnie exist in Proto Freddy's in research and development, which was only opened in 1975, as indicated.
I had a pee break, pee body break.
By this letter from a TJ Frank, firing a Mr. Marco Salmon for urinating on the new equipment at a party celebrating the opening of the research and development floor, indicating it was around even prior to this year, as Freddy's was seemingly designed to exist alongside Fredbear's as a new franchise chain, as indicated by this email. We are almost there. I need the rest for Murray staff contact info. The sooner, the better. You get that for me, and I can sneak in the deal. How would you like to manage one of the new franchise locations? This email will become very important later, so keep it in mind. So we know that Fredbear's likely existed prior to 1975, but can we narrow down the date it opened even more than that? We sure can, thanks to this amazing graph indicating the net earnings of MCM. Now, we'll have to break down the narrative laid out to us through this visual medium, so we'll put Fredbear's on hold for a second. Now, the first important thing to notice about this is that MCM seems to have existed since 1965 at the latest, and it seems to have fallen in 1975. Now, I don't believe 1975 was the complete collapse of MCM, as it would be silly to assume that Fazbear was sending technicians for a whole 4 years prior to Secret of the Mimic.
Or
And
65.
besides, M2 was made after David's death, presumably, which would have happened in December 1975, and someone leaked the existence of M2 to Fazbear, meaning MCM was likely still somewhat functional in 1976. On top of this,
The someone that leaked it to Fazbear was M2 itself. Yeah. Moon.exe tells us that.
we can see the latest work order we can find was placed in January 1977, and it's set to be completed and picked up in April of 1977. So, at the very least, the latest we can assume MCM was operational was January 1977, as it's possible the location closed before pickup. However, a 3 month difference isn't relevant for this theory. So, if MCM persists after the years listed on the sales graph, is it really all that reliable? I'd say yes, because the graph perfectly lines up with the narrative provided to us within the game. The graph is showing us the build up to the climax revolving around the Mimic story, in which the gameplay is us dealing with the aftermath. Now, you may be wondering, how does the sales of the business equate to the story of Edwin Murray? Let's break it down. Edwin Murray's father, Edwin Sr., owned MCM for an unknown amount of time, and at some point he hired on Fiona. While on the job, Edwin meets her and explicitly makes note that his father owns the business. He later marries Fiona, and then his father passes away, leaving the business to him.
So he's close here. Edwin meets Fiona. They marry Fiona. I don't know why I'm saying close like I'm right when I have no or I'm not right. But I think Moon EXE, like I played out in my recent video, goes over this. I think Edwin Sr. dies right before they get married. And then you have Edwin's grief of the death. Then you have Fiona removing the Ranger knife, which helps him start to get better. Then he doesn't know what to do. Fiona encourages him to start doing things with his own inventions, and then they start doing it up until his death. That's my personal.
It goes well for a little while. However, at some point, all of his inventions start to come back. He gets a massive amount of return, being MCM at bad cost. This is really bad for Edward. He's already worried about failing his dad, running the company into the ground. And when he pivots and tries to monetize his own ideas, the threat of failure comes crashing in, letting his late father and all of his employees and his wife Fiona down. In his desperate state, he wonders, if the inventions didn't work separately, maybe, just maybe, putting the pieces together would be the right move.
Also, in Moon.exe again, whenever you face Big Top, it's supposed to be his second birthday because you're going it backwards in time and you get the box for his second birthday in this. And he says this is when they lost the son. And of course, David is born right about here. You got 71, 72, second birthday. Fiona dies. Then it goes back up after getting the help from him. What?
Maybe. And he starts conceptualizing this. Then he wears tired, claiming his invention was even bigger than sleep, neglecting his wife and child in the process as he death he worked to save. In a state of desperation, however, William asks sniffs out this vulnerability and sets the sight on Laurel Edwin. Mad for Entertainment targets MCM for brand new vertical mantra, and Edwin falls hook, line, and sinker. Now, I personally believe that when Edwin is talking about his father warning him about that, it's in reference to Mad for Entertainment, not Sr. actually had a much better relationship with his employees than his son did. Regardless, Edwin ignores his father's warnings in either case because he begins working with Fazbear Entertainment. His Fazbear project starts in 1973, giving a massive spike in income to MCN. Edwin begins working on Spring Rock, starts designing animatronics for the upcoming Showcase Pizzeria for Fazbear. This gives Edwin a great view of misplaced trust in William Afton, with his involvement single-handedly saved Murray's costume center, and Edwin's reputation along with it. But it won't be long before it all collapses. After neglecting his family and responsibilities around the costume center, as evidenced by asking Fiona to perform tasks she's not qualified for so that he can continue his work, she decides that the upcoming Fall Fest is going to require her attention as well, to make sure everything is working proper since this is now an expectation Edwin has placed upon her shoulders. Likely unintentionally, yet a responsibility she feels she must burden her with. She sets out for a few weeks to help the Fall Fest crew, and hires David a babysitter at this time, since it can be expected Edwin certainly won't do an adequate job caring for a child. And tragically, while she is gone, she passes away, likely in some quote-unquote accident involving a fire. I propose the accident in this manner, since we can assume that Fazbear has been attending Fallfest for some time, as I believe it's likely the Fredbear singing show is the Fredbear Family Diner attraction at Fallfest, as indicated by the tickets mentioning redeeming them for pizza at the Wagon, which aligns with a mural of Fredbear and Bonnie alongside Wagon, California 2, leading up to Secret of the Mimic. Since Fazbear Entertainment has Fallfest 1970 posters and the remains of the Pizzeria Simulator, I believe they may have been attending since at least then. And the one thing we know about Fallfest is that one of them ends in fire. And since in Help 1 and 2, which again had many teasers for Secret of the Mimic, we see the fire start, burn down the attractions, and Springtrap left standing in the wreckage. William Afton was the head of the franchise. He sought out Edmund Murray when he's at his lowest and lured him into a false sense of security. These are all traits we see William exhibit time and time again before he commits a murder. And in this case, he finds Fiona Murray, part of MCM, all alone, making sure Edmund's work isn't in vain, and he strikes. Now, this is just a possibility for her death, but I think it makes a very strong case for William causing the fire to further his plans of taking over MCM. After Fiona's death, Edwin either completes the Mimic and introduces David to it as a replacement as babysitter, or introduces him to the already completed Mimic and gives it a new purpose. The timeline of the creation of M1 isn't super important, as either way, it's likely only a couple months difference, depending on where you stand for it, and it has the same outcome regardless. However, I do not think the Mimic was made for the express purpose of replacing Fiona. The endoskeleton has all the features Fazbear wants for its abilities in regards to performances, shape-shifting, picking up personalities, etc. It would be a strange thing for Edwin to do.
Let me speak. Let me preach here for a second. The mimic endoskeleton was not designed to be Fiona, clearly, and obviously it is influenced by Fazbear ENT. We go back to Moon.exe again, which has been a big obsession of mine theorizing lately. And you have where M2 is taking over Fiona's memories in the first part. Or that's my opinion. And then it comes out to the scary tree. You get the Chica cup out of the nest, you leave, you get the ranger knife, and then you go back and you cut the branch off of that tree. I think that tree is Fazbear ENT because whenever you're going up to the cabin later in Moon.exe as Edwin, which is around the time that the mimic endoskeleton will be being built, you have to use the walking stick that you took from that tree to get up that steep hill. So I believe that is where they're getting the information from Fazbear Entertainment. And I believe that it's the M1 programming doing it. Because again, we see that the M1 programming got the walking stick whenever Fiona was still alive, and then Fiona ended up not using the walking stick in her lifetime because she chose not to do it, which eventually led to her death. That's again my opinion.
It was explicitly meant to replace Fiona. If that were the case, we would have likely only programmed it to take on a single personality, like the Charlie Bot in the novel. Edwin also seems surprised when it starts replicating, indicating replacing them is not his goal when creating. Also have no need to change it. Fiona wasn't a deep woman. She wouldn't have changed things if she got moving. Unlike what you might turn a new skeleton that to replace a child, like David. But since they either both use the same type of endo or use the exact same endo, this wouldn't have been something Edwin designed the mimic in mind with, meaning the future would only have been meant for the purpose for both. Staging sizes is constant, aka for commercial purposes. After M1 takes on this role, presumably as just a babysitter bot, is not explicitly meant to be Fiona at first. Edwin either hears her ghost in her basement, and the mimic takes on her persona as a result of ghostly influence, or the mimic learns that Fiona is what Edwin wants, and so walking through recordings of her, and listens back to audio to take on this role specifically. While this is happening, there's a long thread between Fazbear Entertainment.
I think personally, because whenever he's listening to 4625 and he's hearing a moment where Fiona was griping at him for not being at one of David's birthdays. You feel like he's hearing his own regret, and that's what he's finding. I believe that his emotion of regret after the death of Fiona, because there's also another line where he said that he was leaving another radio. He said he should have been at Fall Fest, but he was too busy with working. So I feel like his regret is what he hears here, but it's not actually Fiona that he finds in the end.
There's the end. Well, William Atkins siphoning off employees into dynasty products. And it comes to a crashing point when on his fifth birthday, December 6, 1975, David Murray dies. Now, personally, I strongly believe William Atkins also killed David, just like he did Fiona, but that's a topic for another day. From this point, the time of MCM is depicted from a visual standpoint, but we have clues that can inform us on some things. We know that MCM continued to operate at least until 1977, based on these order forms we can see throughout the manor, which means that M2 was likely made sometime around then and beaten at some point into 1978, which then several months would pass, and Arnold was then sent to 1979 to retrieve the schematics for this machine. None of the rest of the MCM timeline is too important to today's topic, however. If you've forgotten because of my MCM rant, we're talking about Fredbear's Family Diner. So why was any of this important? There's an odd couple of details throughout the game, the timeline we just covered, that indicate that not everything is average 15. One of those being the way Fazbear's involvement influenced the net earnings of MCM. Now, since we can assume that Fazbear is what caused the fight, this should mean that Fazbear Entertainment was already very successful by this point in time. Yet this is a whole decade before Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was made. We can also see in David's third birthday reel, which is again in 1973, a Fredbear's Family Diner pizza box at the table, right here. This means again that Fredbear's was around for at least a decade prior to 1983 closure. But I bet it goes even further back than that. Now, at many points in
Hello,
the
welcome in, welcome back.
this is actually the original business.
Hope you guys are all doing great watching.
Now, yes, it's not impossible that this is the correct interpretation. However, I believe the answer is actually simpler than this. If we take a look at Fredbear's Singing Show ad, we can see that it says tickets are 50 cents for general admission, and the tickets are sold inside. Whatever the show has music, food, beverages, and entertainment. The food here is almost certainly pizza, obviously. Now, if we take a look at the Focus ticket, we can see that we can save 50 cents on any pizza purchase at the farmer's pizza night when we bring this ticket outside of the celebration time. Now, there's already a connection. Fredbear's Singing Show has mentions of tickets being sold inside. The food for purchase that is almost certainly pizza. Take a look at Fallbest ticket, it mentions a pizza wagon. They say 50 cents on pizza upon redemption. But there's one detail that ties these two things together. The mural on the glass for MCM we saw on the TV for Secret of the Mimic in Hellpoint 2. This mural depicts a wagon that advertises a bear and a bunny. And while most people assume it's Fredbear and Bonnie because the rabbit is blue and the bear is yellow, I do believe it's important to keep in mind that the Fredbear Singing Show directly calls Fredbear and Freddy, meaning in reality it's still Freddy and Bonnie, just a more yellow iteration of the other. Aside from that, however, I believe we need context clues of all three things to say that Fredbear Singing Show is the Fazbear Entertainment attraction at Fallfest and was the catering for this event. This to me indicates that it was simply the on-the-road version of Fredbear's for this event specifically, as advertised. Now, a counter-argument to this would be in Moon.exe, where we can find a collectible that reads, "There's a square record nailed to the tree. Fredbear's Singing Show, our favorite restaurant."
Hello, Raven. Welcome in.
However, I don't believe that's what this is saying. If you attend some sort of festival and there was a McDonald's that's set up for confessions there, but it was branded with the festival, say something like Ronald McDonald's Pirate Paradise, or whatever else they call it. If you ate at this place,
I would eat at Ronald McDonald's Pirate Paradise. Let me know in the chat if you would eat at Ronald McDonald's Pirate Paradise.
and you love McDonald's, you say, "Oh man, this is my favorite restaurant," when you saw it, because it's just a different kind of McDonald's for a bit. Now, another counter argument is the idea that the stylization of this advertisement is indicative of the 1930s style, being black and white with typewritten eyes. But remember that a lot of MCM commercials were presumably made in the 70s, since they used David's voice, and yet are stylized in a way that align with 50s cartoons. So the Fredbear Singing Show could simply be stylized to fit the theme of the rest of the attractions surrounding it. It doesn't necessarily mean it has to come from that era. I myself right now.
Another thing I think about this is that things also create what looks like them from their era that are made in that era. For instance, like CRT cameras. If you record something on a CRT camera now, it's not just going to magically not have the CRT effects because it's 2025. It's still going to record in the same way.
That's exactly it. In fact, Steve will later it, but I'm obviously not making it in the 30s. So then, I propose Fredbear's Singing Show being a player of Moon.exe's favorite restaurant, simply being in relation to Fredbear's in general, which we can say for a great deal of certainty David was certainly fond of. Not saying David is necessarily the player of Moon.exe, most likely and too, but Minnicus is that. As we can see that at least for his third.
Do I have a goal? My goal overall is to reach at least $50 between today and tomorrow. If I don't, that's okay. I mean, helping is helping. I am going to put some of my own money towards this at the end. I have a little bit put back for the charity, but I'm trying to see what I can get without having to do it myself first. But again, just being here, talking, liking the stream, commenting helps it get in the algorithm. So don't feel obliged to donate. If you can, hit that link, go on Discord. I'm in a lot of Discords. You could just send me the link on Discord. You could send me not the link, the screenshot on Discord of the confirmation. You'll be put, don't be sorry. You'll be put into the drawing, and then the Steam keys I will roll. The first four I will roll tonight.
Birthday. There was Fredbear's Family Diner pizza there for dinner, indicating David probably quite liked it, considering the return for that birthday day specifically, and the sheer amount of waiting for him to get on his birthday. Not to mention the plenty of Fredbear's Family Diner pizza boxes we see throughout the game at random locations, including inside Edwin's house specifically, not even just his factory. All that to say, Fredbear's singing show is just the fall best version of Fredbear.
I do appreciate that, Mio. It's a good cause. I really, really feel strong behind this. We can get to chumming America and trying to make it a better place. And if not, again, don't feel any type of bad or any type of way about it. I just appreciate you being here.
So, what does this mean? Cyber one. If Fredbear's really was always the first Fredbear, singing show, why am I claiming that everything we thought we knew about it was wrong? Well, if we're connecting Fazbear's involvement with Fall Fest to Fredbear's, let's take a look at the other time we see Fazbear's involvement with Fall Fest to see if we can extrapolate more information about Fredbear's. And realistically, not much else to look at except one thing in particular. The Fall Fest 1970 poster we see in the FNAF 6 location under the Complex. The stylization of this ad for Fall Fest fits exactly with the stylization of the ticket for Fall Fest we mentioned earlier, that mentions the pizza. So the fact that Fazbear Entertainment has thought it necessary to include the 1970 poster in their pizzeria, in addition to the fact that the ticket has the same stylization, to me indicates that it's very possible Fazbear first started inserting themselves into Fall Fest at the 1970 Fall, which is why it's in the pizzeria, so it'd be memorabilia of their first Fall Fest venture. This then means that we're again equating Fredbear's singing show to the Fredbear's attraction at Fall Fest. Fredbear's Family Diner should exist by the time of 1970 at the least. This then means that at the bare minimum, Fredbear's was around for 13 years.
He said bear.
Before its fall in 1983. But I believe we can again take its origins back even further, using Edwin's father, Edwin Murray Sr. So to add some pretense for this, we should take a look at Glitchtrap, but not necessarily the entity that is presenting as him, and more so the actual stylization of Spring Bonnie we see with Glitchtrap. The rabbit has yellow fur, sporting a purple bow tie in a manner that is incredibly similar to the Fredbear's Family Diner poster in Secret of the Mimic. And if we take a look at this new merch from Sashi, we can see that this specific version of Spring Bonnie is indeed the version Glitchtrap is based on, sporting the purple vest as well. And this version of Spring Bonnie is called a retro Spring Bonnie, indicating it's an older version than the ones we're familiar with, likely in reference to the Spring House. This then indicates that Fredbear's Family Diner was using these felt costumes prior to the invention and usage of the Spring suits. Now we have to ask ourselves, these costumes, the retro Fredbear felt.
Hello, Stogeometric. Welcome
I'm
in.
not getting into Glitch M1 versus Glitch M2 today to represent itself. And since we can attribute the mimic to Murray's costume manner, in addition to the fact that the retro is being advertised at MCM, this to me means that Fazbear Entertainment was working with MCM to develop their suits prior to the invention of the Spring Arcs. Now, in this graphic of the time, Fazbear Entertainment was working with MCM to develop their suits prior to the
Whoa, that's interesting.
invention of the Spring Arcs. Now, in this graphic of the timeline of MCM, me and a couple other heroes spent 2 hours going over all the information from Secret of the Mimic to create it. So I'll link them all
I was there for like 5 whole minutes.
to it here if you want to break down the evidence and reasoning we came to for it. But we can see here in 1968, Edwin Sr. dies and Edwin Murray Jr. takes over. You can hear in some audio logs throughout the game, specifically this one in the sport time area of MCM, that Edwin Sr. warned his son about someone, saying his dad was right, they are trying to destroy him.
They're behind it. They're behind everything. They are behind it. Yeah. Dad was right. Dad was right. Dad was right.
Now, I've seen it argued that the people Edwin was warned about were the employees of MCM. And while I don't think this is impossible, it's strange since the start of the class of MCM occurred at a minimum 5 years later. Now, I don't doubt that MCM might have had some loyal employees that would have stayed for at least 5 years. However, I do find it odd that the insinuation would be that Edwin's father had a negative relationship with his workers, as he would obviously be paranoid of them, and they would feel comfortable enough in their work environment to stay loyal to that law. So, to me, the more logical route to take in the statement would be in reference to Fazbear Entertainment, since we know that they are the reason for the class of MCM, the Fazbear Project, which would then directly relate to Edwin saying they are trying to destroy him, in which he relates to his father warning him about this. This should mean that
Thank you very much, Mia. I really appreciate it.
for him to have
I hope you have a great day.
Fredbear's suit, which would place the creation of Fredbear's Family Diner as being at a minimum slightly before 1968, when Edwin Sr. would have died. Now, to me, since this is a game about Fazbear Entertainment's involvement with MCM and how they affected the company, I don't think it's a massive stretch to say that Fazbear has been around and working with MCM since 1965, the start of the graph we were showing the game. So it would only be a few years before the assumed minimum time for Fazbear to be involved, just upping from 1968 to 1965. I think this could be skillful placing this graph for the players to showcase the time frame that is important and relevant to the events we see in the game, meaning Fredbear's Family Diner would presumably be around from 1965 to 1983, meaning the diner would have existed for a whopping 18 years prior to the fight of 83, the event that fell against that was Fredbear's. Now, with the timeline of Fredbear's out of the way, I'll also address something else before getting back into what I think the larger purpose always assumed that Henry Emily was one of the founders of Fazbear Entertainment alongside William, where Henry was the tech genius and William was the business savvy side. However, since we know Fazbear is a much older brand than the novel trilogy, alongside the fact that the location didn't use Henry's presumed invention, strain locks were at least a while before their introduction, as indicated by MCM producing the retro felt suits instead. I think we can safely make the assumption that Henry was not one of the founders of Fazbear Entertainment. Now, I know this is going to get me a lot of comments saying that Henry is always depicted as being one of the founders in every book series we get. And to this, I say, yes, you're correct. However, with the deconfirmation of Tales games, I think we can take a look at what Scott Kaufman initially proposed for us and how we're meant to use the books. And that is to say, he explicitly said not to use the books to solve the world games. Anything that needs solving can be solved using the information.
So, I love Fazbear. I don't believe that this is in reference to Tales or Fazbear Frights. What he's trying to, well, I think what Scott was saying here is that you shouldn't be like reevaluating the lore on what happened in the books, not by who, because in separate continuities, different timelines of events happen. Not that Fazzy and T is necessarily incorrect, because it could still be Henry could just be Edwin in the game timeline, but now there's an Edwin in the game timeline, so that doesn't work either. Hi, Burb Dot. Burb. Burb. Burb.
With years before he exists. However, it should not be taken as a form of canon that outweighs.
Thank you guys so much for showing up. It's totally good if you can't donate. Just being here means the world to me. So I appreciate it. I really appreciate you, Glitch. I appreciate you, Bird, Mio, Raven, everybody who's shown up. So Gil, Kane, all you guys are awesome. Thank you guys.
This means if the games indicate something that feels like games, what the fuck say? The games take priority no matter what. The books then only exist as a way to look into the universe of math that we are provided to assist with theory, such as BGY getting very strong supporting evidence of patient 46 being Gregory, which was already in existing theory. But if the book said Gregory was patient 46 and the games in this hypothetical universe indicated Cassie was patient 46, then the games take precedence over the books. Now, yes, Scott did say this about the novel trilogy specifically, and for Frights, and therefore in addition to Tales, since it was advertised as a sequel to Frights, he said we can look at these books to fill in blanks in the past. The statement, however, does not say that these books are canon. Mimic Story and Tales is vastly different from the story we got in games. In the game's events, however, does not these books are canon. Mimic Story and Tales is vastly different from the story we got in games. And the game's events obviously take priority over what the books say. We were still able to look at to get the generalized ideas of the events of the games before we actually receive them in the games itself. This is what he means by using books to fill in the blanks of the past. You can use the books to support ideas that are presented, like the idea that the mimic was made and beaten after the death of David, but the specifics are vastly different. I basically just wanted to get that out of the way. I know for a fact people will come at me with Price indicates Henry was the founder mentioned being involved with Snap 6 Fire. And yes, Price does indicate that, but Price and Tales in the novel trilogy couldn't take precedent over what the games itself indicate. I also think it's important.
Now, is Henry ever actually mentioned in Frights? And obviously, like there's a bunch of stories in Frights. I don't know. I don't know about that one. I don't know if I agree with that one. I don't think Henry exists in Frights at all. Wait, you would have to if the puppet does, right? If the puppet exists and you're the band. I don't know. Let's keep going.
Keep in mind that the game story has eight stories that more games, meaning that most versions of events are systemized time. If I'm wrong about Fredbear's singing show and Fazbear did exist all the way back in the 30s, then it's very likely not even William was. He would have either just inherited the company or simply got his way to the top to become CEO. So with that in mind, we do know for a fact
This
Henry
truly
was
is a
supporting
chum
Fazbear's
moment.
singing. I just wanted to say the games indicate that Fredbear was around before his involvement in potential implementation of string of suits. So what does this mean? Why is Henry important and yet not founder? Well, hold on to your seats, because we yet again have to dive into some information we see in MCM. In the prototype credits of R&D under the
Welcome in, everybody. If you're new to the stream,
as well as
make sure if you can donate, if you want to donate, the link is pinned in chat. There are different little goals and different little things I want to achieve. Um, we have not fed America yet, Burb. We will soon. Well, I mean, just okay. So for what the co-founder wasn't acting. Yeah, that's like there's definitely someone else. There's more people a part of uh Fazbear Entertainment. But we do hope we're and I appreciate you guys coming here, commenting, liking the stream, doing all that. That's really helping. If you're new to the stream, hit the link up at the top. If you can donate to Feeding America. Take a screenshot of the confirmation, send it to me on Discord, Twitter. You can send it to the email theorychum with a 3 at gmail.com. And once you do, you'll be put into a raffle to win Steam keys. Because I got a deal on the bundles of them last night. So. Oh, and if you've recently joined, we're currently going over Fazbear ENT's Fred Barn theory, which is how SOTM solved Fredbear Family Diner and the time. We are currently, he just got through arguing the difference between the continuities and the stories, shared some opinions on that, and that's what we're picking up here. I think we're going to be talking about the spring mocks now. Hey there, girl gamer. So thank you so much for showing up. Yeah, man, we gotta try to do something, even the little people. Hold on, Fazbear. I'll talk to you in a second. Even the little people gotta try to do something here. I appreciate you showing up and leaving a comment. Please like the stream if you can. Hope we. If I could talk, maybe I could actually get through the algorithm. Am I right? Make sure to like the stream. Keep up the comments. Thank you so much for showing out for you guys. Yeah, boy.
Is Henry. So the simple answer then is that Henry was involved with Fredbear's. He just wasn't the founder. And strangely, while the string locks of the books were invented by Henry, these audio logs seem to indicate that Henry doesn't want to use these string lock suits. Now, we know from Secret of the Mimic there are two distinct types of string locks.
Thank
The
you.
the one in string body and Fredbear are functioning animatronics that can have their parts pulled inside and held in place by string locks that then allow a human to put on and wear. It's a suit and animatronic. When we see the string locks in MCM, however, they aren't quite a comedic effect. These string locks actually completely lack an endoskeleton. They don't have the ability to hold independently the person wearing them. Hence why in the puppet show.
I know those birds are like flapping their wings out there right now, man. They're
Now, this
just
doesn't mean that
trying to get me stumbling.
we can see outside David's closet a pair of string lock legs that are both pulled and apart. We know that at some point, MCM employees were using string lock suits that were dangerous to have around water, as indicated by Edwin Upgrade, and that people who suffered string failures were at risk of losing limbs and needed to be hospitalized, as indicated by this audio log from Fiona, and also this mail log from Ren.
About the new suit design. My costumer is sick. Nearly lost his hair today. All he did was spill a can of pop and the thing snapped shut like a bear trap. You're busy, but you can't rush these things. Try to look into it.
So if MCM was working with Fazbear pre-string and MCM employees were using both the old and new versions of these suits, it's clear to me that Edwin was the originator of these suits, not just the ones we see in the games, but the original, more dangerous versions as well. This is also supported by the idea that everything within MCM is available for purchase or lease. These string lock suits would have originated from him, as he wouldn't be able to sell property that doesn't belong to him, which is why there's no Fredbear or String Bonnie anywhere except in the credits. He doesn't own them, so he can't sell them, but the string locks are used in his performances. This is another thing that is completely different from the origins of Fredbear's novels, considering these were developed by Edwin, not Henry. So what is it? Henry and William are frauds, and Edwin made everything instead? Well, no. There's a secret option that leaves Henry as important to everything as he was in the novels, just
secret option.
I know many may not believe them. Although it seems Henry wasn't as involved with Fazbear as he was in the novels, we know he was still involved in some way, as I mentioned before, with Edwin receiving change orders from Henry, telling him about the suits getting ready for the diner, as well as his speech in FNAF 6 saying, "Small souls trapped in prisons of my making," implying he was the one who made a majority of things for Fazbear. So how can these two things coexist? Well, to answer this question, let's first take a look at one of the new names we learned in Secret of the Minute, an admin of MCM named Mildred. Now, what's interesting with Mildred is that he is very clearly an admin, as his name is plastered all over several emails to employees, and is heavily featured specifically in admin emails. And yet he's also heavily associated with Chica's Party World, which we'll dive into a bit, don't you worry. But we can see that he's in direct contact with the owners of Chica's Party World, and is the person conveying information and concerns about designs directly to Edwin.
Dear Mr. Murray, Fiona is amazing. The client is very happy with her chicken design. Their sales are through the roof. I just wish the cost.
You know, I'm gonna rub my hands real evil real quick, right? Notice, let's just peek out this part. I don't know why I was gonna point it out like you guys can see where I'm pointing on the computer. I just wish the costume looked a little bit more like Fiona's art, right? Is so like evil hand or up right here. I think this costume is one of the only things that looks like Fiona's art because the other things Fiona's been credited for were not her own. They were made by Fazbear. And then after she starts to separate, she tries to make her own stuff. And that's when it all starts coming out scary. Gotta go watch Mixus Maker. We might. I know after this, I'm going to review Nervous's recent OMC theory. And then I have to go finish dinner for the kids. I am going to be streaming again, and we're going to go. We'll probably do a video from Gibby, and then do the canon and continuity discussions, and then leave, and then come back again and do TD Reed's video, and then that'll probably be the end of tonight. So yeah, I am going to be streaming on and off because it's always something. You got family stuff, we got lives. Got to do what I can do. I did want to start earlier today, but I wasn't able to.
It looked a little bit more like Fiona's art. I'm worried about how it'll work with the kids. It's
No, Burb. No. It doesn't make me think. I already know. Like, if you think about Moon.exe, right? Whenever Fiona gets her grand prize, which is which is stolen from Moon in the middle of the night, which is Edwin, that's her using her love to steal Edwin's success and stuff like that. And then whenever she gets that and she can open the closet, what is she given? The Hedgehog Halloween mask. She's given a design that's used at MCM because the hedgehog is Edward's. It's part of that. The Halloween mask was her way of getting into employment at MCM. I believe she stole, or she didn't steal. I believe she was given designs to infiltrate MCM. Yeah. I believe once she starts feeling guilty and doesn't want to infiltrate anymore, she starts cutting back and not taking something fourth closet. Yeah. She starts cutting back and not taking. That's how like all of my conversations start. She starts cutting back and not taking the designs from Fazbear ENT anymore. And whenever that happens, we get this stuff to where Chica is the only acceptable things and everything else is scary and it doesn't look like Fiona's art. Because to Milton, what Fiona's art is the stuff that she's turned in. Roxy, Sharpay, the Hedgehog Halloween mask, stuff that she was given, not stuff she created.
As the information gets through Milton himself also expresses concern about what happened to his
I am terribly sorry. Afraid I must break through the machine. I have something important you must
Phew!
May I guess? What's his theory? Pieces together.
Now, President has a lot of information that's directly associated and the middleman with Pretty Road. The specifics of this are this overall makes sense. Edwin has his own damn business to run and micromanage. And MCM isn't just handling costumes or character. Even with how much those crews would be, they're also designing the costumes for Chica's Party World. It's one thing to have an on-site designer send in the plans and have them made, but commissioning someone to also design the star of your show is a whole other layer. Hi, I'm a graphics designer, and going back and forth with the client about design specifications, especially for something as important as the main star, is a lengthy and sometimes exasperating process on both ends. Imagine Edwin having to deal with all that along with everything else. Since Peter's Party World was specifically partnered with MCM, having a guide to middleman instructions to lower levels for them and only contact Edwin when necessary or asked makes a lot of sense.
So, and here's where it gets controversial. If we want to say that Henry is both involved with Fazbear, but Edwin also seems to have the same level of involvement, the simplest answer is that Henry was working for MCM and admin as the direct contractor for Fazbear, building all of the designs and frames and classics you see in the photo credits, taking input from Fazbear and Edwin, and relaying it as the middleman between them. This means that while Edwin was still the developer of all things we are told, spring off from classic animatronics, Henry was the one physically constructing them, still making them prisons of his making.
All gold trapped in the point making.
Now, there's an issue with this. We know that Henry later worked for Fazbear, so does the game imply there was ever a shift? and received a hefty reward for it. Now, what's interesting about this specific law is that using the environmental storytelling that Siegel was very fond of, we can determine that this email is intended and directed towards someone in the admin, since this is where the mail log was sent to.
Like for years, you will excel that more than
I did see that. Are you okay? Did you hurt yourself, or are you just tired out from using the saw? Had to use the muscles.
web design and environmental stories. I'm a game design writer, and long story short, we have two main areas. We have this first area with a bunch of cubicles, email stations, and conference rooms, including the one for David's birthday. Area 2 is up a stairwell, flying important. It has 3, maybe 4 offices. One is just full of storage stuff and could have housed 2 to 3 people, but you can't say anything. One on the very end and of another staircase is Edwin's itself, so very important area for very important. The first office we put into is full of secret articles, just blueprints and concepts to official merchandise and the membership. Now, with this, the admin wing and everything else we said about Wilson, it implies this.
Hello, Omni Soap. Welcome in.
One is various boxes, and the other is mainly empty. Let's talk about that one because it's very important. Firstly, while many doors in the admin wing are typically locked, I guess giving away admin privileges or for admins, well, sides of this hence needing to enter the event. This would be strange if it wasn't the office where we get WA email. Meaning, this office belongs to the person who betrayed Edmund. The first week. The person first read bad bear dogs around the computer. Next, Edmund
Right. Be a friend anymore?
to really big. Their office then being generally empty makes sense. They were probably already packing, but even then they're still headed to Boston for the plan. It's true. Peter Cordyville's office seems the best. But I didn't bring up the Peter Cordyville admin office just to put a note there. No, it's also an inherent implication on us. If Peter Cordyville is available by it. But if their biggest partner, Fazbear and
Then I would wonder why you're trying to solve something you're not supposed to solve, my guy.
I know many have previously thought well, Ralph was the intended recipient. However, Ralph was not an admin at MCM. He likely only had access to the creator. Ralph's only known position at MCM was wearing Captain's ring for the public show. And to access this, our player requires the creator rule. It's also unlikely that he would have had access to higher level.
Again, I can't say this enough. Thank you guys all for showing up. I really appreciate it.
Where it's semi-important, the
I really
Avengers
appreciate
to
you
have a
guys.
specific order. Basically, I'm saying that every level of access is not in a system where one overrides another. Like admin privileges wouldn't gain you access to a greater area. It's just in our case, it's special because we gather every permission regardless. I was reviewing my script, and funnily enough, I came across this image, which showcases exactly what I was just saying. The poster indicates that someone who had admin level privileges could not access it until they received creator level privileges, despite admin being higher level clearance than creator. When you have every permission level when accessing, say, a repair, even if you have the executive level upgrade acquired, it still flashes the repair level on the data diagram, indicating it only uses what is required. They are indeed separate roles, not just the sequential level of permissions. This is also supported by the fact that when restarting the game, you can keep the glitch permission upgrade and yet still need to go through gathering the rest of the permissions. So with that being said, Ralph would not have been the intended recipient of the law of William sent, because Ralph's on a
It's all in your hands now.
level position working with streamers and the admin employees. So if it is for an admin or the potential candidate, we have Wally, Penny, potentially Beverly, although she may not be an admin specifically, because she never sends or receives a log on the wing. She's only referenced. Amy, and last but certainly not least, the most Milton. Milton is by far the one sending and receiving the most logs throughout the entire wing. He's very influential. Now, when we look at the log sent from William, it lacks a name attached to it, which, with it being one of the only 2 logs we see from William himself in the entire game, it implies to me that the recipient being hidden from the player is an intentional puzzle piece we're meant to solve. So we could.
Did it turn out pretty? Did you get through it? Did you get it?
I think we should take a look at him first and foremost. Now, while Milton is the pick that could satisfy the answers who believe he is due to how involved he is with the entire admin, I don't think he's characterized in a way that is meant for us to assume he's the one who betrayed Edward. Take a look at the way he talks in the logs. He's very loyal to Edward and does his best to simmer down the rowdiness of the other staff, telling them to stop changing the coach to conference room. And additionally, is the one who sends out to everyone, informing them that the party has been canceled due to David's death. Milton genuinely seems like an outstanding guy. We're not given any indication he would betray Edward. Now, as a counter argument, we do see that he was flagged for unproductiveness in the system, so there are seeds for doubt. Maybe he was overworked and retaliated by going to Fazbear instead. But personally, he is not my number 1 pick for the league. So why to focus on him? Well, if we're not meant to look at the other admin staff, as they hardly have any real characterization or anything.
Heck yeah.
We're not meant to look at Milton
Making progress is good.
Perhaps we're supposed to look at the types of roles that one of the admin staff would have to apply that characterization to the other known characters to determine who the
Who you proposing to?
Together.
Who you wifing up, Bird?
In the option book, we see the direct email from William. It's by the Fazbear's office. No. Fazbear makes them the most money, so even putting aside personal relationships, this makes sense. Only 2 people should be getting direct emails from Will, and that's Edwin, who does Fazbear. Now, I also care if you know something else about Peter.
Hey, what the what?
Is amazing. The client is very happy with their chicken design. Their sales.
Welcome in.
Just wish the costume looked
Self-love, heck yeah. If you like yourself, you should have put a ring on it. I feel you.
Journal entry. I got the change order from Headless. easier using a machine for this.
It just get them from export from an unnamed pattern. The same way Wilson told Edmund there wasn't a new person. Now, Edwin is on a nickname basis with Henry and is the messenger pigeon between Edwin and Fazbear. The author right next to Edwin has William. You can and will get into speculation, but everything is pointing to Henry being the Fazbear.
Based on the things we see Milton is in charge of, we can determine that admin staff are the direct middlemen between the contractors, where Milton informs Edwin about the reception of products and expresses concerns on their behalf as soon as third parties. So if we use this, we can easily see how Edwin could be the person behind all things for Fazbear like chipping off plastics, while having Henry still involved. Henry was the contractor for MCM working with Fazbear, the way Milton was the contractor for MCM working with cheated restaurants. Henry was receiving orders from William to give to Edmund, as well as expressing concern about certain designs such as string locks, and he would have been the one physically constructing all of Fazbear's assets,
Small gold and
making them still prisons of his making. This is also why Edmund went to warn Henry about the odd behaviors of string locksticks. Henry was the one physically constructing them for Fazbear. This then would mean that Henry would have been one of the admins, and in turn would be the missing important character that received the log from Admin, that is heavily connected to both MCM and Fazbear. This is why the name is hidden from us, as the other important character we see have the same level of connection to Edwin as Henry, where he essentially has a pet name for him, calling him Hen. And with his constant remarks to Edwin about the project, it would stand to reason that William would have been in close contact with Henry and could have easily manipulated him into stealing staff from Edwin. This might be more into headcanon territory, however, I can easily see a case where after the death of Fiona, unrest starts stirring within. Employees start losing faith in Edwin and his direction for the company, indicated by things such as someone hearing Fiona
Hydration.
and sending Edwin take her debt for insurance money. You heard Fiona? I heard it again this morning when I was down in R&D. Very clearly through one of the vents, it was Fiona's voice. He sweared in his grave. I heard her and Edwin laughing, joking. Why would Edwin laugh?
Remnant Plex.
Did they take her death for insurance money? I never did trust them. And the infamous man who pissed in all the new equipment, the piss of 75.
Chat spam Remnant Plex. Yay.
So William Afton finds Henry and tells him that he assists in bringing MCN employees for his side. Henry himself can instead punish them with the new franchise location. They're familiar with his old coworkers, and since he would have been an admin, he was already familiar with delegating work to them as manager. He's a genius engineer in his own right, and he already knows all the designs planned for the Fazbear project. It's a perfect fit and would get William key, while also making Henry both the good guy by technically giving the workers better conditions over Fazbear, so we can see in laws, better pay and whatnot, while also making him tragically and unintentionally assist in the downfall of Edmund Murray.
I think it's incredibly interesting that MCM has the lots of full It is as Fazbear was involved in Fest before or after the buyout. Still in what seems to be the Fest Theater and if you play in Pokemon 2 and see Fazbear stuff. But this is all retrospective, so you can't use it as evidence. However, Fiona was around when working with Fazbear in general, having seen female string officers for the make that. And talking about
Remnant Plex.
design.
Fazzy is a guy. Gangster.
They snapshot it up to the track.
I got the change order from him last night. Yeah, this makes sense. It's much easier using a string lock.
We've heard your numerous requests and promises to add windows very soon. Don't have time as soon as the contract for the new Fazbear project is locked down.
What the hell was that? Treating me like some contractor and I whip at. Right, they think me as a friend anymore? This is the last project I ever do that.
Have a good day, Kane. Thank you for showing up.
Keep in mind what Fazbear said earlier about the tickets and the music box. And its potential for
Oh, I saw me a possessed Fazzy and T.
really does imply a bear singing show took place by a big blue wave. But I don't think they acquired Fallfest for the buyout. And it's the same reason I think they have Fred Bear's Singing Show ticket was important. Is that Fallfest and Fred Bear's Singing Show was the start of Fazbear as we know it. It's no coincidence that Fest poster we see at the 80s Fallfest and share is placed behind Track Infinite. But William leads much more in the circus theming than Henry or even MCM. You can see that in his robot. Potentially unrelated, but William's voice cast called for a snake oil filter.
And Girl83 asks, what's the information about your character that Scott gave you? How did you put this information into the voice we know as William?
Scott has a very precise understanding of what he wants it to be. The actual audition. Said that it was like a snake on the cell.
When he got started in medical shows at commercials and besides the positions that he's now also been associated with. Funmen and circuses have kind of the same sort of show. After all of this, I wouldn't be surprised if Henry started as the Fall Fest. Greetings with Fazbear admin when a person MCM partner show gained a lot of popularity. The Fredbear Singing Show record when clicked on moon.exe says our favorite restaurant, implying that, yes, Fredbear Singing Show was Fredbear's design.
Cats can talk too, man.
William at lead. The idea that Henry worked with William very closely on this idea to expand Fredbear's Singing Show into his own thing seems like in the Silver Eyes trilogy, Henry was the robot guy and William was with expanding this idea into Henry being the manufacturing guy instead of like hand building and designing every Freddy Fazbear himself makes sense. Note that Ralph mentioned that the handshake for the spring suits are provided by the manufacturer, which means even in FNAF 3, it's not new, it was a manufacturer that made these and not Henry and his business. See, if you just dig a little deeper, it's totally okay. Henry is the link involved with MCM, and he's the co-founder of Red Bear Society. We can have both. Henry has two hands.
Okay, that was a massive side tangent about Henry's involvement with Fazbear, but this is a video about the origin of Fredbear's in the game's timeline. And while Henry is not explicitly involved with the origins of Fredbear's in this version of the timeline I've created, I felt necessary to bring up as it is a major difference between the game's version of events and what's told to us as reported in the novel trilogy and Frights. Now, let's get into the real meat and potatoes of this theory. With Fazbear Entertainment being a brand that owned Fredbear since likely 1965 at the latest, this means that Fredbear's was around for an entire 18 years, almost 2 decades prior to opening Freddy's and the closure of Fredbear's. Now, I want to ask, with how aggressive a businessman we've seen William be throughout this game, doesn't it seem odd that he'd wait until the mid to late 70s to start his career at retreat? I ask because of one specific line, one that we can hear right at the very start of the game. Arnold, hey buddy, this is just Fazbear Entertainment. This line right here throws off everything we thought we knew about Fredbear's family dynamic. How can that be, you ask? Well, what does a dispatch do in a company? The company's dispatch is there to send different employees to different locations. In the case of Fazbear, they're sending Arnold to a different location because he's their nearest technician. Now, I have to ask, why would Fazbear have a dispatch if the only location they own is a single small factory? It would make much more sense to have your employees simply show up to work at the only location that you would have. There's no need for a dispatch if you don't have multiple locations to send them. So, what are the available options for Fazbear to send Arnold? Well, the obvious is MCN, but as we know, this is a much more recent development, and it appears that dispatches existed as a thing prior to the show.
For the completion of Fazbear alternative theater, usually authorized.
As the dispatch
Oh no, the CIA, they're on to me. They're gonna give me a gateway to give me an operation to stop running my mouth.
So, Master Chica's Party World? Again, I'd like to say yes. Fazbear actually does not own Chica's Party World. They do eventually own Chica herself, yes, but the company associated with Chica's Party World is explicitly called Chica's Red. There's also the issue of Chica being promoted at MCM. When you first enter MCM, we're explicitly told that everything you see throughout the manor is available for their release, which means that they are things owned by Edwin Murray. This is why there's not a single Bonnie or Freddy character throughout all of Secret of the Mimic except for the Proto Freddy, because those are the property of Fazbear Entertainment and are not available for sale or lease by Edwin. This means that Fazbear owns Bonnie and Freddy, and upon gaining the assets of MCM and their entire capital, we then gained ownership of Chica and Fox, hence their involvement in Fazbear henceforth. Murray likely had a Chica's restaurant where the character was leased out to them, and upon taking it over, Fazbear also gained that same contract with them, despite gaining ownership of the character, which is why all the way into the future, Chica is a Fazbear-owned character, and yet Chica's Party World is still on the contract with Scraft Robotics as a client. They own the character and are still leasing her out to that company. So, since there is no Freddy's at this point in time, dispatch doesn't exist for MCM specifically. Fazbear does not own the Chica's restaurant. The only viable option for secondary locations to set technicians to are more Fredbear's family items. And this actually lines up with what we see in the sales of MCM. The spike given to MCM from Fazbear for the restaurant project absolutely dwarfs Edwin's biggest success. They know that. And again, I thought over the entire breakdown of why I placed these events at these specific points on the graph and plot going over the entire timeline of MCM with several other theorists. So go check that out on the channel for the evidence breakdown. But Fazbear being so incredibly wealthy a whole 10 years prior to the opening of Freddy's is indicative of the fact that Fredbear's is a chain restaurant just like Freddy's. With Fazbear working with MCM for so many years just supplying the costumes as well, it implies they were in need of many, many different suits to be sent to different locations. If there's only ever one Fredbear's, they just need the 2 suits for each character and they can move on. They wouldn't need to be in regular business with a company designed for mass producing costumes. Also, credit to fellow theorist Liv Saidi, go check her out. But she pointed out to me that one of the harder problems to understand is for a set of equipment that seems very heavy duty, a 2-ton crane, as well as some other things that seem like they're for construction on more than just animatronics. Now, there are 2 options. Fazbear sends out this equipment to other companies, or Fazbear receives this equipment and assigns it. And I'm willing to bet since the company names
So, the courier systems for a delivery. Girl, drop off. Ooh, 16 couplers, 8 check valves, and then hoses with couplings. So they are trying to take out something big, but what exactly is he implying?
Here's anything Fazbear related, that being nurse courier services, they were on the receiving end of the orders. This then begs the question, the equipment wasn't for the construction on animatronics, what could it be for? Well, the simple answer is buildings, and specifically since the entire premise of this video is there being multiple Fredbears, more restaurants. Now, at the start of this video, I proposed that this revelation would majorly affect one of the most infamous minigames of all time, that being Midnight Motor. But how can this
Fred
be?
Chaz, let's
Well, it has to do with one of the
go.
longest debates since FNAF 4, that being how many houses Afton lived in. Now, yes, this part of the theory is reliant on the idea that the Midnight Motor's house is the Afton house, but I think that for the most part, that's the majority belief held within the community. The main differences come from when Midnight Motors takes place and what's happening in the minigame itself. But luckily, this theory won't actually fit too heavily into those topics. Now, to start this out, I'd like to propose that the house we see on Hills
wrong.
Now, versus Red Bear, I think we can make a pretty solid case for FNAF 4 title screen to be the Midnight Mooners. And since the layout of Curse of Red Bear matches nearly one-to-one with the surrounding area in Murray's costume manner, the house on the hill in the background and the lake in the foreground, we can then clearly make the connection between all three. Now, there's one more thing in the area of Curse of Red Bear that I haven't yet connected to anything, that being the barn. So let's take a look at the barn and see what information we can extrapolate.
Well, it's time for the
The
friend
first thing to
part.
note is that rarely Red Bear himself can be seen exiting the nearby lake, walking towards and into the barn. Now, Red Bear has obvious connections to Fred Bear, which then in turn has connections to the White Bear. So let's assume that Red Bear represents the Crime Child for the time being, and take a look at what the interior of the barn and the Crime Child walked into contains. We see 7 tables and party mats, balloons and presents, as well as some Fazbear posters, and just importantly, a birthday cake with 7 Jameson. The barn also rarely has potential It's Me Easter eggs to get all town posters and go dark side. That's information.
And the blue light. It's quantum agony. It's the thing that's there. Taggart. I did receive that membership. Thank you very much for giving for that gift, Mia.
Chicken Vine is clearly meant to be symbolic of Fred Bear's, where the Crime Child was killed. Now, what makes this interesting is that if the barn is representative of Fred Bear, it means the location in the real one should have been a Fred Bear's as well. So, down the hill from the Aspen House in 1983, short distance away, there should be a Fred Bear's Family Diner, and this would match perfectly with the location of MCM. This then means that sometime between 1979 and 1983, after the destruction of MCM, William Afton takes the land and builds his own restaurant, perhaps where MCM used to be. So, that then means that the FNAF 4 minigame house, which is a short distance away from the Fred Bear's Family Diner in 1983, is also the same house in Fred Bear's as the one that is built by the Midnight Monsters, making them the same house. Now, I understand there's the issue of the FNAF 4 house being a neighborhood, and here's where we have a couple of options. Option number one, the one I believe may be the most likely, is that the minigame is not meant to be literal and only presents things in a stylized manner to carry across a theme or feeling.
Nexus Maker. The FNAF 4 minigame is an actual minigame just created by Crime Child being put in the Nexus in the FNAF world. Mango is delicious. Verb. I do love some mango.
A confirmed example of this actually already exists in FNAF, where the minigame that showcases Elizabeth's death takes place outside in a field with no other people present in the middle of the day. Whereas in reality, when Circus Baby and also separately Elizabeth retire this event, they both coincide the fact that Elizabeth was killed indoors after all the other children left. The minigame in FNAF 4 would then simply be a stylized version of the event and location meant to convey a feeling rather than a literal showcase, such as to indicate the popularity of Fred Bear's prior to life. Option 2, the option I believe may be less likely, however, one that I personally believe in more, is that the minigame presents the area differently due to loop vision, which means that we'll have to break down that theory to explain what it means. Now, credit for this theory goes to Professor Petta from the channel Fnafology, so please go check out that video after this one. I mean it. Loop victim is genuinely my favorite FNAF theory of all time. In fact, there will be forced to dock your pay, potentially repo any vehicles you may own. Do not check it out. But in a general sense,
Come at me, Fazbear. You already came at me once. Live to your name. Made me rewrite a 50-minute script because we wanted to share screenshots. Okay? Okay? Okay, Fazanji?
loop victim is the idea that the crime child's been stuck in a loop ever since the bite of 83. He has to relive the same week leading up to his death for decades. And as time goes on, the outside world begins to warp his perception and memory of the event. This then explains things such as Toy Chica missing her beak. The loop is happening after 1987. And so when the real life Toy Chica removed her beak, the toy in his memory also lost its beak. Another example is the Mabel toy in Westwood, where Mabel was not an existing character prior to 1987. It was simply a Funtime Foxy before toddlers destroyed it daily. This then alters the crime child's memories, and the Funtime Pixie toy Elizabeth was destroyed in his mind, just like Mabel in real life.
Isn't that weird how that's the same design of Mangle from Mangle's Quest? Nexus Maker.
That's the general idea behind loop victim. The idea that things from the outside world affect the bite victim's
Oh,
memory.
I'm up looping my victim. What the what? You already know. Loop victim.
The event, which is what we played through in Path 4. And so, using the idea of loop victim, we could then argue that in the reality of 1983, the surrounding area of the Afton household looked like the title screen area, wooded and isolated. But the gameplay loop was happening all the way in the future, after FNAF 3 due to the Springtrap reference in the minigame. And so the surrounding area has now been altered in his mind to more closely match reality, the area now being an urban setting just like the ski and sister location. Either way, if the 1983 Fred Bears that the crime child stayed at is indeed nearby the Midnight Motors house, that then would mean that the tunnel system that eventually gets turned into Circus Baby's Entertainment and Rentals that connects Edwin's house to MCN also be connecting the Afton house to Fred Bears, which is actually backed up and supported by the breaker room at sister location, picking the layout for Fred Bear's Family Diner in it. This would be because Edwin ran power through the tunnels in the form of common fluid, and Afton likely would have simply kept his power system. So when Fred Bears is built, it is then connected to the same common grid, explaining why Fred Bears was presented in the breaker room map. While I was thinking, I was talking to a couple of theorists, motor circle, who's different.
Sauce.
Arguing for the linear concept,
Sauce
just like
firework.
MCM, but disagreeing on Fred Bear specifically, I realized that what I presented for evidence of a new Fred Bear being built on top of MCM isn't quite strong enough for some people, so I wanted to provide some additional info. Now, to start this off, I'm sure sure by now most of you have heard of the theory of Fazbear, where majority of the Fazbear locations we play at throughout the games take place in the same vicinity as MCN, which then has the Pizza built over it years later. And one of the primary factors that got people thinking along these lines, even before Secret of the Mimic, was the fact that the FNAF 6 location was underneath the Pizza. Now, it's been a community consensus for years that the FNAF 6 building was also Fredbear's, ending the series right here, which is also supported by the fact that under the FNAF 6 building, there are Fredbear's memorabilia, including a cutout which is notably not present with MCM. And since there are MCM costumes underneath the FNAF 6 building, it applies the FNAF 6 building was built over MCM. And if the building is Fredbear's, then Fredbear's was built over the remains of MCM. So then line up with the barn and Curse of Fredbear being nearby the lake of MCM, and down the hill from the Aspen house was the Murray's house. Now, another thing to note is that this barn in Dreadbear has a particular truck nearby that can occasionally have the headlights turn purple as an Easter egg. And this exact same truck can later be seen right next to the FNAF 6 building under the Pizzaplex, implying the barn is where the FNAF 6 building is later made, again connecting the barn to Fredbear. On top of this, I've shown the image many times by now, but the image of the abandoned Fredbears from the graphic novel lines up pretty well with the general ruinedness of the barn. However, it lines up even better with the cabin in Movie.exe, where Sun is. This cabin has a bear specifically sitting in front of it. And when you enter the cabin, you can see there are masks on the table which line up stylistically better with Fredbear's three lines, based on the designs you can see here. And inside this cabin, there's an oven. And this oven has the Fredbear's Family Diner pizza oven inside of it, implying with these details all together that this cabin is Fredbear's Family Diner. When you examine the pizza oven, the player explains that sausage was his favorite, likely in reference to David. And after repairing the masks, you're kicked back out to the forest ruins, where upon taking a turn, there's a tree with Fredbear's singing show record attached to it. And your character explains that it was our favorite restaurant. The repeated usage of favorite Fredbear's singing show and the Fredbear's Family Diner pizza oven implies again they're likely either the same thing or at the minimum from the same origin. I want to briefly hand off to Corey again to go over some of the connections to Fall Fest and Fredbear's and its relation to Fiona, to his son, who is in the cabin, likely Fredbear's, before continuing to train his body.
Once he's talking about all the imagery surrounding the barn. Fredbear walks into the barn is set up like a Freddy out of the Halloween theme, and the first It's Me mention in game since FNAF World is found here, as well as the Fall Fest here being in Age 3. Now, when it comes to the fire that killed Fiona, there's two places of origin that it could come from. Fiberglass, which we'll get to, and the fall. In the carousel game, the fire starts from the barn and moves towards you. If the barn had anything to do with Fredbear's or Fazbear Entertainment, it can get nuts. That's a right here. Fredbear's Sing and Show and Slash Record, their fancy new restaurant they're planning on and may want to advertise, is implicated heavily. I will add that Fiona never says she's setting up a new installation, just the installation, giving it room to be a more routine one, but now it's just more unfair. This routine installation could be like a Fall Fest specific version or addition to Fredbear's Sing Show. The reason I say that it is Fazbear related is because of Fazbear, which I said we would get to. Fazbear, which also implicates Fazbear, but less so Fredbear or his show. Only less. However, why start the fire in Fazbear so specifically if it means nothing? Think about what other than hitting rockets at the end of Fredbear's arm, and the puppet why it started. The puppet has very obvious whether born in 78 or 80, Carly is so she didn't start the fire. But if you turn to your right, you'll see too many people have talked about being the same color drop in the whole of Leslie, who is also the puppet. He is also a bear who stands by a shooting game, which he got multiple of at MCS, just with Edwin and Fiona.
How long is this video left? Okay, so this video is almost over. Before we go into nervousness video, I'll show you guys something about Carney
Either this brings up
that I
Edwin,
like.
is his daughter after all, or the fact that puppet signs are along with the rest of the great Fazbear cast signed by Fiona, who is a puppeteer herself. And who like Red Bear.
Let me see if I'm lagging. Yeah.
Only moves left. And then Springtrap is found in the ashes. This is the stretch.
Yeah, it says I'm lagging. Well, it says I'm good, but it also says I'm lagging a little. So it's probably not you.
Not exactly spoken. Makes sense. They're not the personality to go off. These are just the people.
It's all me. Oh no. Come out, gang. Hold on. Okay, where's the
Say that. Fall Fest fire.
airplane food? Wait, can y'all not hear me anymore? Oh no. I think that should have fixed it. I think it should be better now. I turned it up. Let's check OBS. Exit. Connection. Minor issues. Oh, so it's been a few days in general. Okay, well, Welcome to the ocean, Mio, where it's always something. So I automatically assumed it was just something on my end.
Sure way there. Definitely.
So connecting those vault vests is known as Death and Fat Bears, and with the cabin with the sun being connected to Fredbear's, and with Fredbear's being connected to the barn, and with the barn being nearby the Midnight Motor's house, and with the Midnight Motor's house being Edwin's house, and with Edwin's house being near Mary's Costume Manor, and with Mary's Costume Manor being underneath the FNAF 6 building, and with the FNAF 6 building being connected to Fredbear's, and with Fredbear's being on the sister location power map, and with the sister location power map being connected to the tunnels under MCN, I think this all makes a very good case for the barn being Fredbear's. But there's actually even more. The FNAF 2 location is most likely a repurposed Fredbear's, based on phone calls in FNAF 2 saying,
No. Thank you. Right there. Thank you. Oh, that's here. So I got it. Go.
since it seems like Ralph is implying the Fredbear's company is separate from the Freddy's company, it wouldn't make sense to contact the owner of the shut down Fredbear's, and not the owner of your own, unless the building was owned by the person who owned Fredbear's, meaning the building used to be a Fredbear's. This is supported by the fact that Ralph says it was closed for years, implying it is no longer closed because the building is now repurposed. Also, in the advertisement for FNAF 2, they say the building is a vintage pizzeria given new life, which lines up perfectly with the building being a repurposed Fredbear's. Now, since we've established that FNAF 2 building is a Fredbear's, we can take a look at Help Wanted Bed Repair and see that we start at Circus Babies Entertainment and Rental above ground with a pizzeria, and this pizzeria has broken down its way, implying that it's the FNAF 2 building since the boys are scrapped. This means that since the FNAF 2 building is connected to Circus Baby's bunker, and since the FNAF 2 building used to be a Fredbear's, that means that Fredbear's then is connected to the Circus Baby bunker, which again is supported by all the previous connections and also the sister location power map, showcasing Fredbear's being nearby the bunker, which is most likely the repurposed tunnels under Mary's Costume Manor. So, with the theory that there is a Fredbear's built on top of Mary's Costume Manor, is there any more information that we can extrapolate? Well, I believe yes, down to exactly where the building was and what it looked like. Now, since we connected the barn in Curse's Fredbear's with Fredbear's built over Mary's Costume Manor, we can see that the barn would line up almost exactly at the end of the small road at the end of the parking lot. This then doubly connects 1983 Fredbear's having a parking lot and a playground nearby, the small park-like area just to the side of the parking lot Mary's Costume Manor, and also David's playground nearby, as well as the cabin nearby Lightning.exe, as well as the bedtime story saying a rubbly tumbly bear saying sweetly by a big blue lake. Cool. So we have the exact location of Fredbear's would have been built, but how could I possibly know what it looked like? Well, what I found interesting ever since the teaser for Secret of the Mimic is the Mary's Costume Manor building that looked like this. And the interesting thing about it is the fact that it's completely absent in game, despite appearing in the promotional material. And what else is interesting is the fact that it's nearby Edwin's office in his house, in the form of a miniature model. And another thing that's interesting is the fact that in Help 102, the building has Fredbear and Bonnie on the glass in the mural, despite it not appearing on the glass in the miniature model, as well as the fact that Mary's Costume Manor did not own Fredbear nor Bonnie, and so it should not have been allowed to advertise them on the building. So, what I would like to suggest is that William Afton took this design for the miniature Mary's Costume Manor model and used it for his construction of the Fredbears he built on Mary's Costume Manor property after gaining ownership of it, which then lines up with the building being separate and actually relatively nearby where it would be from the main MCM factory if it were the barn at First and Fredbear. This building has a small house-like segment on the side which lines up with the FNAF courthouse being connected to the Fredbears in the daytime. Yes, I know I said the Midnight Motor's house is the minigame house, but this could just be representative or perhaps a daycare area or whatever else. I just find the similarity between them interesting. And the building also has a rounded out segment we can see from the front, which would fit perfectly for a carousel, which then lines up with the child being asked if the carousel was his favorite ride in the log. Additionally, the building very clearly advertised masks, which is strange because we never see a single mask in all of Secret of the Mimic. Well, I guess aside from the Hedgehog Huggy mask, but that one's less of, something they're selling, more just something we find that belongs to David. However, it does line up very nicely with bullies in FNAF 4 having masks. If all of this is true, what I expect may be the case going forward is the Fredbear's Family Diamond game centered around and inside this building, where M2 would be the main antagonist since the Fredbears would be built on top of the MCM property. And perhaps we could even see M2 don Glitchtrap pop up, giving us the moment we were all expecting going into Secret of the Mimic that we never actually received. On top of this could also be a potential retroactive reason that the Crime Child would be terrified of the endoskeletons in the back room of Fredbear, as well as what he may have saw. If M2 managed to kill an employee or something along those lines, it would be what he saw and why he was so terrified of the animatronics, but not the character. Again, the majority of the miniature model being Fredbear's and a potential Fredbear's game is speculation, but I think it would make a lot of sense personally. I know that was a lot. So if you simply skip to the end to get the TLDR, or just like a recap of everything, I've come to the conclusion that Fredbear's singing show with the Fredbear's attraction at Fall Fest, Afton gained ownership of Chica after taking over MCN, but also gained an existing contract leasing Chica to Chica's restaurant company for Chica's party room, explaining why Chica's party room was one of the finest apps in robotics. Henry was the leak of MCN and was given management rights for the Freddy's franchise in return for assisting Afton. Fredbear's Family Diner was a chain of restaurants dating back to at least the mid-1960s, and the FNAF 4 minigame house is actually the same house as the Midnight Motor's house, meaning Afton built a new Fredbear's on the remains of MCN, connecting it to the eventual sister location bunker. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to me yak about Fredbear's for however long it's been. I want to give a shout out to Fred. He's been the one making my thumbnails for the past few things I've done, and also assisted me with the voice acting for Milton earlier in the bit. So please go check him out. He's genuinely dope. Anyways, thanks for watching. This is the end of the company-wide mandatory update.
Oh, this is
I hope
later.
you enjoyed your stay here. Employees will.
All right. So before we move on, Find one of these. Wait, there's new teasers on Scott's Twitter language. There's new teasers on Scott's Twitter page. Are you trolling me right now? Yeah, that's what we want. Hey, I'll check it out in a second. So it says, and this return letter, this is about the Mushman music machine. I'm writing this to complain about my purchase of the Mushman music machine. It learned my child's musical taste, but it also imitated everything it heard. TV commercials, blenders, and even private conversations between my husband and me. Private conversations between my husband and me. Now, if we understand that Fazzy ENT was taking um like shit from MCM, we come in here. All right, here we go. So now Carney, well, it's not in this voice line, but in the one of the Fazer Blast helplines, he says that he's been around. He's seen it all. Famously bad. Okay, I'll go look in a second. He says that he's been around, right? So the implication is that Carney was around for a very long time prior to Fiona's death. So what I feel is that Carney at Fall Fest overheard a conversation between Afton and Fiona, and like the Mushman return, there he repeats back and forth of the conversation. I feel like this is gonna be like part of the hello. How you feeling? I feel like I see your ugly mood. You're here by yourself. How sad. Fiona going to meet Afton, or vice versa. Where's it at? Now, then Afton replies with score higher, face the consequences. And then what I think connects. And Fiona replies, "This is the last time I'm going to do it. There's nothing left." And then we get the whole "I'm on fire, I'm on fire." I think Carney, his voice lines are repeating the private conversation between Afton and Fiona. Okay. Oh, do you mean these? Yeah, I've seen these. Thought there was something new again. If you tell me you found like something CIA in here, I'll cry. Look at that red pepper though. Oh, baby Al. All right, Mia, I'll go check that out. Hey yo. So thank you very much, Mio. Mio has helped us reach out our goal. We have $25 reached. We have $25 reached. It's already half the goal right off the top. Mio, I am going to put you into the. Give me 1 second. That get you down. So I got you wrote down. Um, I really appreciate you coming and doing that. It really helps. Feeding America says every dollar feeds 10 people. So your donation of $25 goes to help feed 250 people. Um, it's really awesome that you would do that. Thank you. You make me feel amazing, heartwarmed for it. Go ahead and dox my notifications real quick. Okay. All right. So now that I went over that, we are going to go over quite possibly like top number two favorite theorist right here. Um, don't be lame, but it's kind of like a tie for first for me between Rye and game theory, but that's because like I spent the last 10 years with game theory, not really even aware of other creators. And then I spent the last number of years following Rye. Eh, too too blurry. Everything, everything's going wrong, Burb. You know it's not a theory chub stream if everything just doesn't fucking shit on me. Okay, so she's always nervous. She's amazing. I'm actually super. Oh, no, don't start it down there. Don't jump ahead either. Before we do this, I'm gonna move Burb. I'm gonna tell her you said that. I'm screenshotting that. I'm telling. Ooh. But yeah, I'm gonna grab the whiteboard real quick. My kids drool over it. Let me erase it. There is something special I want to go over about her video. I'm going to give you guys a visual representation of it. Hopefully, I'm not just talking over here sounding like a cat that's burlap sack thrown in a river. All right. Whiteboard is back, making its special feature appearance. No brutality. I'm snitching. I'm snitching hella hardcore. But we are going to go. Today, we're going to talk about dimensions. See that? Hell no, you can't see that. Am I still on mute? Can you hear me now? All the oxen free. Do you believe? Oh, there we go. All right. So yeah, like I was saying before, I figured out I was muted. If you're new to the stream, we're about to go over She's So Nervous, this theory, live react to it real quick. I'm gonna go over dimensions, then I'm gonna take a break and be back later tonight. I gotta go finish dinner for the family. Um, the link at the top of the screen, that's the Feeding America donation link. If you click that, you can feel free to donate on your own. I have no way to track it. I'm not with Tiltify or anything, but you can either send me on like Discord or X or Twitter, whatever it's called. You can email me theorychum spelled with a 3 at gmail.com. Send me a picture of the verification. I'll put you into a raffle to win random Steam presents. Then within the rest of today and tomorrow, if we raise another $25, I will put myself through Help Wanted VR. Now I'm like super scared, so not do that. But like raise money for people to eat, obviously, but let's not scare me.
Like America, you feel trapped under the crushing weight of the many secrets. Does the sight of this man make you want to set fire to an abandoned building? You may be experiencing modern FNAF burnout, but don't fear. There is
Thank you, Mio. Thank you so much for everything. It's really huge that you came through. I really appreciate you.
long ago. You can theorize about the original landscape when the lore was just polluted, but there was objectively less of it. But act quickly because your audience's attention span is decreasing fast. I'm nervous and I love FNAF. But also I understand why the fandom reacted to it and caused embarrassment about it. Disappointed that things should have so favorably for the game.
You know what? If we actually hit the goal and we get 500 people fed, I will do Here Comes the Airplane to like animatronics. Welcome, Heisky. You're never late, man. You still showed up. We still have another theory for the day. I'm gonna be leaving and coming back. You still showed up. You commented. I'm sure you're gonna hit the like button. I appreciate all of that. Thank you so much. Since you just got here, we're going over She's Always Nervous's theory on old man consequences. I know you told me you don't know much about FNAF, but you'll kind of get the information while you watch this. That's understandable, Highski. I still appreciate you even trying, my guy. Highski is from Resident Evil Survival Unit. He's in my alliance in the game, and I really appreciate him showing up, showing his support today, trying to get some people fed.
I think there is so much in this game that just gets tucked into the corners of the theorizing community. So I find myself struggling to come to any sort of conclusions regarding modern FNAF. I figure it's a good time to go back to FNAF World and take a look. I'm going to start on the surface and work my way down to full reverse FNAF World to start at the deepest layer of this oscillating tiramisu. Old man concept. A handful of answers to the question, who is this guy? Most commonly referred to as an alligator, OSC has been theorized to be Henry, Michael Madsen, and even his own guy. But I'll come to you humbly with what I believe to be the true answer to this question. And it's someone I'm sure none of you expected. No, I'm not going to say it's Edwin. But to make my case, we first need to look at what Snap World as a whole is. The game's plot regrets making canon. This is important because
Hello, me loafers. Welcome. I appreciate you showing up and coming on in. Um, so before Nervous's theory, because I do think she is very much onto something. I thought it was Edwin Senior. Again, Burb, you're not obliged to donate at all. I mean, I really appreciate you just being here chatting. I mean, the stream already, from what it's showing to me, is at 12 likes. It's really big. I think that's like my most liked stream ever. So this is probably, hopefully, getting pushed through the algorithm. Other than the horrible lag, because if I get 9 things right, the other one thing has to go wrong. Yeah, just being here, getting the word out, that's how other people are going to see it. And the people who can donate, they can come throw $1, $5, however it is. Can you donate? You can always donate a PFP burp, and I will add to my donation at the end of everything tomorrow. Because I'm going to bring in a donation to, I don't want to say match in case people start like in case like someone just shows up and drops like $200 or re-raise like $200. I can't match that reasonably, but I will donate if it's low. I'll match it. If it's a significant number, I'll add more to it just to make it better. Yeah, well,
Is in fact canon, but it's
Doofus OMC, let's go meet loafers. That's what's up. Meatloafers watching the peak videos, obviously. Verb, if you're hurting, you don't have to hurt yourself for a PFP, bro. I can still make a donation for you. You're my guy. I got you.
if you've played this game or seen much of it at all, you know it's incredibly meta. There are references to 5 other works that are integral to the story's world. Usually, such worthwhile breaks are reserved for his non-canon projects, so it's understandable that he's regretful that he put them in a game that does have connections to the larger story of Five Nights at Freddy's. I mean, players are lore hunting in a game where they can encounter the literal creator of the
Am I quiet or is the video quiet? Both. Is it better? Am I louder now? Oh, that may be too loud. Hold on. Okay. You want to help though? Awesome, Bird. You will help, man. Both. So give me just 1 second. I'll fix that up. That wasn't supposed to happen. There we go. Siri, what's your favorite letter in the alphabet? S, obviously. Both my wife's name and Shark.
FNAF games, and he speaks to the player character as if he's speaking directly to the fans of the FNAF franchise. The game is simultaneous.
Is that still too low, Meatloafers? I mean, I turn myself up as much as I can. I turn this up.
Telling us about the lore in this fictional game world and commentating on Scott's history as a game developer and animator, his personal feelings and frustrations, even personifying his less popular games as bitter and jealous of the success of FNAF. Characters from his other games and animations show up all over the place in FNAF world. There should be some examples flashing across the screen right now from a video that was a big source of information for this video. Before FNAF, The Strange Beauty of Scott Cawthon's Other Games by creator Solar Sands. Honestly, all of the evidence we're
Just like in the Fazian. Oh, yeah, it is echoing because I have. It is echoing because I have my headset on, or not the headset, the speaker. So let me just switch over to a headset. That way you guys aren't hearing me talk. You know, I might play Desolate Hope on live and see what the hype is about the little coffee machine. One of these days. Not part of this, though.
presented with, including the fact that the world map of FNAF World looks like a literal human brain, makes me tempted to suggest that the only reason there's any FNAF lore in this game at all is because the whole thing takes place inside Scott's mind. So yeah, there are things we can learn about FNAF from the game, but not because it takes place in the world of FNAF, ironically enough. From here, you could argue that the game really is a portal between two worlds. Things that happen in Scott's mind affect the world of FNAF because he is the creator. He influences the story because he's the storyteller. Not that one. This reading would also call back to themes of many of his old games, where characters seem to become aware of their own creator. For example, The Desolate Hope is a game about multiple robots being tasked with creating their own idea of a simulated planet. And in the fifth paradox, well, let me just read you the game's plot synopsis. During a time of myths, monsters, and fantastic technology, an ancient tablet is discovered that makes a society rethink their place in the universe. When it is discovered that the purpose of
So, what we're about to see right here, this is the time travel in Five Nights at Freddy's. We're about to see the bootstrap paradox. I'll explain it as we go along.
their existence is to create the being that will someday create their world, a secret team.
So notice how they said that they have to. Notice how Nervous said that the people in the fifth paradox have to create the being that's going to create their world. This is called a Jin particle, like DJINN. Still doesn't show up really well. But anyways, DJINN, like the mythical being, the Jin particle. We actually see this in Back to the Future. And this is why Back to the Future is referenced so much in Into the Pit. Excuse me, nervous, but we gotta run away for a second. Yeah, if I could six. Kind of. So, gotta get a small one because I'm. Oh, here it is, right here. So what happens is that Marty McFly goes to the past and he's playing at his parents' prom, trying to hook them up so he gets born, which is the same bootstrap paradox. Now that I'm saying it, but I want to focus on what's going on in the movie. At this point in the song, he's playing a song by Johnny B. Good, a song called Johnny B. Good, and this song isn't actually created in time until a few years later. Go, go, go. Johnny B. Good. So now, the person on screen is meant to depict Marvin Berry, who is sibling cousin. I believe it's cousin. It might be second cousin, or maybe like an uncle or something like that. Or maybe Chuck Berry's his uncle. They're related in like a cousin sibling type of way. And he's right now calling Chuck Berry, who is the original creator of the song that Marty McFly is singing right now.
Chuck, it's Marvin, your cousin Marvin Berry. You know that new sound you looking for? Well, listen to this.
What happened here is the song he's playing has become a Jin idea. We'll go.
So it's just one bit. First thought, but song ever written.
Right. Because the only way that Chuck Berry heard it was because
that's the song that, and then the implications are thought, but then remember it was 1985. So when I first saw that, I said, the line is he holds up
Marvin Berry
calls and.
Okay, so we're gonna go into this. This is the time travel that we see in Into the Pit. Fifth Paradox, another game that Scott Cawthon created, is literally based on this in its entirety, which is crazy.
Marvin Berry hears it,
right?
Calls his brother.
Hey, Chuck, it's me, Marvin. No, your cousin, Marvin Berry. Yes, Marvin Berry. For the purposes of this bit, I must say my whole
name. Right. And so he holds up the phone, and Chuck Berry, who we presume is on the other side of the line, is hearing
Johnny B. Good.
Johnny B. Good, played by
Michael
Marty.
J. Fox, who is Marty.
Okay.
Marty McFly.
So when I first saw that, I said, there they go again, crediting white people for that.
So now white people founded rock and roll.
That was my first thought. Remember, it was 1985.
That's right.
And
yeah.
All right, I was my first thought. But then I realized the implications of it.
Right.
Okay? The implications are Chuck Berry hears this, and then he creates that song, and that's the song that Marty plays. So we can ask the question, was that song ever written?
Right. Because the only way that Chuck Berry heard it was because Marty McFly played it. But the only way that Marty McFly played it is because Chuck Berry played it first.
So now, let's remember the fifth thing that we saw. Like, these beings have to go and make their own creator. They have to make their own. They have to make the being that's going to create their world. So their world only exists because their being creates it. but that being only exists because that world creates that being. That is a Jin particle. That the fifth paradox is explicitly a bootstrap paradox. This is the same as Into the Pit, right? Um, they're going through, the memories are being changed, it's creating a Jin idea, it's creating a new timeline that's going to be in a loop. Loop victim! Quit burp.
Right.
In his frame of reference. But he
Correct.
big freaking paradox. It was already created before he actually creates it. But he
Correct.
couldn't have created it because it was already created before he went back in
Exactly.
time. So it's just one big freaking paradox that never ends.
No. So the song,
That's so wild.
the song was never created.
Right.
It only ever existed in this time loop.
Right.
Right.
The song only in the time loop.
In the time loop. Right. No one wrote that song.
Right.
So
Right.
So it's a Jin song in that sense. Not a Jin particle. It's a Jin song.
That's pretty wild.
It was never created or destroyed because it lives in that loop.
It lives in the time loop.
One person hands it to the next person, hands it to the next person.
Right.
Okay? So that's a Jin situation.
That's wild.
Okay? So there's another example in a less.
All right, now that's been shown. The other one's like a cheesy romantic love movie. Now I still have stuff I gotta get done, so we're gonna get back to this. But anyways, yeah, I got on the slide, right? Sorry for that. The more you know.
Team of genetic scientists start creating super powerful beings. If they do not complete this task in time, existence will disappear. But problems start to arise as the Paradox Project produces genetically flawed monsters capable of terrible destruction. A lot of Coffin's other projects explore these themes too, and I really implore you watch that Solar Sands video that I mentioned before in order to hear more about it. And here's the thing, if this was Scott's true intention for this game, to disseminate some FNAF lore in this bizarre multiverse environment that takes place entirely inside of his head, of course he'd regret making it canon, because that solution would be really difficult for the fans to accept, which is something that Scott has lamented about before regarding his story decisions. And for what it's worth, I myself am very attached to the idea that the game exists as a way for Charlie, aka the puppet, to help the spirit of the crying child pass on. And I think the game can be both things, but for the purposes of this video, I'm looking at it through this other lens, because I think at least on some level, it's clear that FNAF World isn't just FNAF World. It's an amalgamation of Scott's past projects. And if that's true, then why have we only ever considered Old Man Consequences to be a FNAF character? I mean, we have full-on boss battles with Chipper and Animdude, both which lead us to endings of the game. So what makes us so sure OMC isn't another instance of this? Especially considering the art style of the innermost layer of FNAF World reminds me a lot of Scott's 2014 title, Rage Quit. And, I mean, the sprite from that game is just an
Stop coughing with hair!
angry version of Animdude. And I think it does favor OMC. But don't worry, I'm not suggesting that OMC is just angry Animdude. I mean, look at him. This is definitely not a human avatar. It's most commonly compared to a crocodile or an alligator. So really, the answer to this question should be obvious. That's right. Old Man Consequences is Doofus the Dinosaur, Scott's first ever game character. Now, I understand completely why our minds may not immediately jump to dinosaur when looking at this red fisherman, or even why one would dismiss it for a more accessible animal, but the two share a lot of similarities, including the way it seems Doofus is even using a fishing rod in the cover. From what I can see, he never actually fishes in the game, but there is a water level. And considering Doofus is from Scott's earliest game, and you find OMC in the deepest level of FNAF World as you traverse through more and more simplistic graphics, I don't think my claim is terribly outlandish. But you don't have to take my word for it, because I was not the only person who was hooked by this theory. So, Gibby, take it away.
Hi, I'm Gibby, and I'm here to derail this video and talk about Tom Bombadil. Lord of the Rings has a deep lore that you can find nestled in the middle of the action going on page, with more ineffable stories littered.
Gonna branch off again and just say I love me some Gibby and Toto. Chum is actually inspired by Toto.
Throughout the Cimmerillion, but Tom Bombadil isn't one of them. Things like Gandalf being an angel or the history of where the elves come from are interesting tidbits for nerds that don't really impact the plot, but Tom Bombadil is different, because he's metatextual. Let me read you Tom's introduction from Fellowship of the Ring, and then I'll explain what that means. The part of Tom Bombadil will be played by Candy Bunny. So Merry and Pippin get in trouble in the forest, they're being swallowed up by this big tree, and Frodo and Sam run for help. Frodo screaming, "Help, help!" and then this happens. Suddenly he stopped. There was an answer, or so he thought, but it seemed to come from behind him, away down the path further back in the forest. He turned around and listened, and soon there could be no doubt. Someone was singing a song. A deep, glad voice was singing carelessly and happily, but it was singing nonsense.
Hey, doll, merry doll, ring-a-dong-dillo, ring-a-dong, hop along, follow the willow, tom-bom, jolly tom, tom-bombadillo.
Half hopeful and half afraid of some new danger, Frodo and Sam now both stood still.
Am I gonna get canceled? Like, I love Candy Bunny's, like, singing, and, like, she's a great singer, but I was, like, fire being sped up. I was like, don't cancel me, but it sounded fire.
Suddenly, out of a long string of half-hopeful
Follow the willow. Hey, doll.
singing a song, a deep, glad voice was singing carelessly and happily, but it was singing nonsense.
Hey, doll, merry doll, ring-a-dong-dillo, ring-a-dong, hop along, follow the willow. Tum-bum, jolly tom, tum-bombadillo.
Half hopeful and half afraid of some new danger, Frodo and Sam now both stood still. Suddenly, out of a long string of nonsense words, or so they seemed, the voice rose up loud and clear and burst into this song.
Hey, come, merry doll, dairy doll, my darling, light goes the weather wind and the feathered starling.
Sounds like something that would be like on like a serious like rap beat of someone who is like trying to do like an inspirational rap, kind of like Forever by like Eminem, Kanye, and all of them, or Successful by Drake. Yeah, right. I would also use it as a ringtone. I can agree there.
This continues for a while. There's a whole song that he sings.
I don't even like Lord of the Rings. Oh no!
They stay there for a few days, and he tells them ancient stories about the forest and the world. He's a weird guy who often breaks into song and talks nonsense. His wife tells the hobbits that he is master, like master of the forest, sort of. And then, on their final day, Frodo asks, "Who are you, master?"
Eldest, that's what I am. Mark my words, my friends. Tom was here before the river and the trees. Tom remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. He made paths before the big people. He saw the little people arriving. He was here before the kings and the graves and the barrow wights. When the elves passed westward, Tom was already here, before the seas were bent. He knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless, before the Dark Lord came from outside.
Lots of maggot. Wait, not the right series.
So while I'm sure that Tom has some explanation deep within Lord of the Rings lore, the actual answer to what he is can't be found in the pages of the book, because he is metatextual, which means he's a reference to something outside of the text itself. Tom Bombadil is a character from bedtime stories Tolkien told his children. He's actually based on a doll that his second son owned. Tolkien wrote a poem about Tom when his children were very young, and published it in 1934. The poem is what we just heard.
Hey, doll, merry doll, ring-a-dong-dillo, ring-a-dong, hop along, follow the willow. Tum-bum, jolly tom, tum-bombadillo.
And so on, and it goes on to tell the story of how he met his wife in the forest. The Hobbit was first published in 1937 and Lord of the Rings in 1954, 20 years after Tolkien first wrote Tom Bombadil's poem. When Tom Bombadil tells Frodo that he was here before the river and trees, he doesn't mean that he's a primordial being. He means that, literally, he as a character in the real world existed before Middle-earth. Tom Bombadil as a character came long before any hobbits, elves, or acorns in Middle-earth. When he says, Tom was already here before the seas were bent, he means it. He was here first. He was one of Tolkien's characters first. If you've played FNAF World, you already know that Scott Cawthon is playing around with a similar concept. Chip from Chipper and Sons Lumber Co. is one of the main antagonists.
Other series that also play with this concept. Stephen King and the Dark Tower, Final Fantasy, it's like full of them. Pokemon. Pokemon does the same in some of its games. Malik just gonna have to wait.
His motivation being that he's...
Oh. Here, guys, time out. Time out. I'll be right back. Call me. You should call me on my cell phone. Alright.
jealous that FNAF took off and his game didn't.
It was supposed to be me. It was always supposed to be me.
Oh man, it's so meta, and you're so operatic.
A character from Scott's previous story is entering into the narrative to comment on the relationship between the two texts. When Nervous first floated the idea that Old Man Consequences might be Doofus, Scott's first ever video game character, I was immediately on board because the first thing I thought of was Tom Bombadil.
Doofus the Dinosaur is just Old Man Consequences.
Oh.
Doofus was the first game ever created by Scott Cawthon other than Tess. I don't think I'm making this up anymore.
Please, for the love of God, we are not making Doofus Old Man Consequences series.
Of course, Scott's first ever, oldest character would be the deepest in the code, in the simplest graphical style, now an old man, who's just so above whatever's going on in the narrative of Five Nights at Freddy's. To characters from outside the FNAF universe like Chipper and Doofus, these aren't real dead children and a real murderer. They're just characters in a story. So Doofus isn't going to go to the surface to fight off the evil spirits. He's going to just do what he does.
So, let's go over this. This is from the first game, right? Humor me on this. The boxes I draw on this are dimensions, right? So, I exist in our dimension. I'm going to create a dimension. This dimension, the box right here. Boom. It exists within my dimension, right? Because I'm here, the erase board exists here, drawn on the erase board. So this exists here. However, I can't go into this because it's beneath me. I do something called transcend. I am creating dimensions. I transcend this dimension so I cannot enter it. So now what happens is if in this dimension you have somebody creates another dimension, and then another dimension, and then another dimension, another dimension. All of these dimensions exist in this dimension. All of these secondary dimensions exist in the first dimension I created. I would love you if you were 90, Verb. Now, the way to look at this is that this outside dimension, like where I'm at, is Scott. He creates Doofus, who's in the first dimension. Then goes on to create. No, I'm not gonna lie. I do not know the chronological pattern that Scott released games, so I'm just gonna throw stuff here. And then he goes after creating Doofus, which is in that dimension. Inside of the next dimension, he creates Kiffer. This goes down. We'll actually erase these two dimensions because I drew too many boxes. And then he creates FNAF. Now, mind you, all of these dimensions are still in my dimension, right? We all still on the same bird? Same bird. Same page? Pretty sure I'm losing everybody. But anyways, Doofus is on the outside, on the outer dimension of the games. So for FNAF, like in FNAF World, whenever we go through the glitches, we're leaving dimension. So hypothetically, whenever we leave the first glitch, we're going into Chipper's dimension. And then the second could be, say, the fifth paradox, the one that we were just going over. Right? So now we've gone through here, through here, through here, and we have three codes, all that exist underneath the first dimension. So what happened? You doing dimensions in class? Heck yeah, Burb. Dimensions are where it's at, man. This stuff is like really fun once you start to understand it. Now, once we go through these three glitches, right? And then you leave the fifth paradox. When you come into Doofus's dimension, what happens? Where can't you go? You can't go back down because you're now transcending these dimensions. You are now out of just the normal dimensions within the game. And now you're back out to Doofus's first dimension. And if I lost you, the only thing you need to know is that Nervous is right. And then all of this exists within our dimension. Now this also plays into canon and continuity. Because if you're in a system, if you're in a series with a cosmology with overlapping timelines, the definition or the term game canon, I can't write or speak or nothing. Or book canon, these terms don't exist. Why don't these terms exist? Because they're all part of the same thing. Because they're all connected through their timelines. I do believe that, Verb. I do believe. I think doing an infinite amount of convergence in space would definitely make one go insane. All right.
Gonna fish. And in UCN, he's going to tell the vengeful spirit to rest their own soul, to let the story end, joining Doofus in the happily ever after that comes when a story's concluded. Old Man Consequences looks like Doofus, fishes like Doofus, and in Lord of the Rings, when the story's over, Gandalf thinks to himself that he'll pay Tom Bombadil a visit, now that his story is over too. I really think these similarities are intentional, and that even if Scott wasn't aware of the history of Lord of the Rings, he, as an author, as a creative person, was creating the same kind of metatextual connection and commentary on the nature of story that Tolkien created. Thanks for letting me on, Nervous. Sub to Gibby's Horror Homestead for more videos about FNAF that are actually tricking you into learning about literature. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much to Gibby and Candy Bunny for being willing to collab with me and for being unbelievably patient with me, as that portion of this video was completed back in July of this year. FNAF World, however you interpret it, is clearly Scott's way of looking back at his entire body of work. And because of that, I don't think the prevailing themes and details of those works should be ignored. The story of Doofus the Dinosaur is simple but notable. Doofus is the ruler of the land of Dinostria. A ruler, you say. And what does this ruler do? Well, he opens something called the Spazzacor, a portal to another realm which houses a creature called Lord Grok, whose purpose is to...
And as we're talking about OMC being the outside dimension, come on, chat. I want y'all to spam. Tell me what you see in the background of this image. The image on screen. What do you see? What do you guys see? These little guys right here. These little wavy boys. Wheat fields. Listen, Burb. That's obviously fire, my guy. Fire. And just like in like Ultimate Custom Night, whenever you do the OMC Easter egg and they're telling you greetings from the fire, William is burning in this area. William is burning in a sea of fire in the OMC area, where Doofus, as we can see him down here, went through a one-way portal to go see. Looks like wheat in the sunset. Poor Burb. No, dude, it's a sea of fire. But yeah, this sea of fire, this lake, this is where Doofus is at, right? Because you got like the ground. This is the lake he's fishing in. Fiery little lake.
Disseminate evil to every universe, specifically their fair share of evil. And Doofus's goal was to remove all of the evil from Dinostria and send it back to Lord Grok, who you might refer to as a demon. I mean, look at him. And believe it or not, there is a later game of Cothins that was released in 2008 called Iffermoon, which takes place in a more futuristic Dinostria, or Kingdom of Dinost. Dinist? Whatever. It features this guy, King Doof. A king, you say? I mean, come on. And frankly, I could go deeper into the fact that this game also features a rather sinister mood and another character called K2, who is a robot with green eyes and an orange glowing light that was specifically built to mimic and replace King Doof. But I think I've made my point. Old Man Consequences is buried deep in Cawthon's mind, and the idea of him has been largely set aside, so Cawthon can focus on newer projects. But he hasn't been forgotten. He's still there. He's seen it all. He knows the consequences of attempting to banish evil from a universe. And he urges us, whoever you believe this fair sprite to be, to rest our own soul. Leave the demon to his demons. Accept that there will always be some evil.
You would be able to be aware of other dimensions as if you transcend that dimension, right? Like, I'm not aware, like, other than we can make theories about it, like we make theories about time as the fourth dimension, I'm unaware of what a dimension higher than the fourth dimension actually looks like. There would be people who are in lower dimensions
in the world, and take care of our own heart so that we do not become a part of it. I honestly find this to be the most poetic and satisfying solution to the identity of Old Man Consequences. I even believe it works well with later iterations of him if we use the logic of one more FNAF tuber, Clavis Key. I won't spoil everything that their Friendship Solves FNAF video has to offer, but they describe the Murray AI and later M1's storytelling functions as a sort of game of telephone, each iteration getting a little more estranged from the original. And what does Help Wanted 2 show us? OMC, just as a king, not quite the dinosaur king he once was, spouting off stitched together bits of dialogue that are difficult to decipher and whose origins have been long forgotten. Now, as long as I've thought about this theory, I'm really sold on it, but I want to know what you think. Is Old Man Consequences a reflection of Scott's earliest creation? Could his portal be the key to all of FNAF World's multiverse? And do you want to see me do a more extensive deep dive into how the themes of Scott's old games find themselves in the world of Five Nights at Freddy's? Let me know in the comments below, and while you're down there, consider hitting the like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe to become a part of the Nervous system. Thanks so much again to Gibby's Horror Homestead for collaborating with me on this, and to Candy Bunny for offering her voice to the project. You'll find their information in the description, so make sure to subscribe to them and comment Doofus is king on their most recent upload to let them know that Nervous sent you. That's all for today, so thank you so much for watching. I upload videos every week usually and go live on Wednesdays and Fridays usually, but if you can't wait, there are videos on the screen right now just for you. Okay.
I'm really glad you like that one on me. I really like this one too. It's actually been popping off. I know she's happy about it. So to those who aren't here, if you haven't already, please go like and subscribe to both Fazzy and T and She's Always Nervous. They are awesome creators. This nervous, bro, I'm gonna snitch the shit out of you, bro. I'm telling. So make sure you guys go and like and subscribe to them. Thank you all, genuinely, like look into my eyes. Thank you guys for showing up, talking, liking the stream. Thanks to Mio for her donation. We're gonna try again to get some more donations. I have to go feed my kids. They already calling my phone trying to rush me. So you guys make sure. I don't know what time I'll be done and what time I'll be back, but keep your eyes open because we're gonna come back tonight. We're still gonna talk about canon and continuity. Still go over a video from Gibby and another one from Cheaty Reads. And that'll probably be the list for today, and then tomorrow we're going to be doing the games and stuff like that. Thank you guys so much for showing up. I am going to go snitch on Burb right now. You guys have a great day. Again, before I leave, if you haven't already donated, hit that link up in the pinned comment, in the pinned chat. I will see you guys soon. Bye.